Have you ever noticed something strange about certain relationships in your life? At first, everything feels fine, sometimes even good, but over time, something changes. You can't always explain it clearly, but you feel it. A quiet sense of exhaustion, a feeling that you are shrinking a little inside the relationship. And here's the thing, it's rarely about one big moment. It's usually something much smaller. Something repeated so many times that you stop noticing it happening. Most people try to understand relationships by looking at individual actions. One day someone is kind, so you forgive them. Another day they're distant, so you rationalize it. Maybe they were tired, maybe they had a rough day. And then life moves on. But stay with me, that's not how relationships actually break down. They don't fall apart because of single events. They fall apart because of patterns. Invisible patterns that slowly shape how you are treated. And the truth is, most people don't notice the pattern until they are already inside it. There's a moment when you realize something feels off. But instead of trusting that feeling, you start explaining it away. You try to find reasons that make everything okay again. But here's the problem. Relationships don't run on explanations. They run on consistency. And consistency always tells the truth. Think about this. Some people interrupt you often. At first, it feels small. Just a habit. Nothing serious. But over time, you notice something deeper. Your voice starts feeling less important in the conversation. Not because you became quieter, but because the space you were given became smaller. Or maybe someone often dismisses how you feel. They say you are overreacting. Or that it's not a big deal. At first, you might question yourself. Maybe they're right. Maybe you are being too sensitive. But let that sink in for a second. If your feelings are constantly minimized, you don't just feel misunderstood. You start doubting your own emotional signals. And that changes something deeper than the relationship. It changes how you trust yourself. Now here's something most people miss. We often think the solution is to change the other person. To explain better. To be more patient. To give them one more chance. But in many cases, the real shift has to happen inside you. Not in who they are, but in how you interpret what is happening. Because some people are not confusing. They are consistent, and their consistency is the message. Relationships also have invisible rules. Who adapts more? Who explains more? Who waits more? Who adjusts first? And these rules are not decided in the beginning. They are created slowly, through repetition. You don't notice it happening. Until one day, the relationship no longer feels equal. It feels like you are adjusting more than you are being met halfway. And this is where things get complicated. Because nothing seems dramatically wrong. There is no single moment you can point to. Just a slow accumulation of small imbalances. A conversation where you were not fully heard. A moment where your effort was not acknowledged. A time your presence was taken for granted. Each one feels small on its own. But together, they change the entire emotional structure of the relationship. And if you ignore that structure long enough, you start adapting to it. You start lowering your expectations without realizing it. You start explaining away your discomfort as normal. But discomfort is information. It tells you something about alignment. Not everything uncomfortable is wrong, but repeated discomfort is never random. Here's something important. Having standards in relationships is not about judging people harshly. It's about understanding where you function best emotionally. Without standards, everything becomes negotiable. And when everything is negotiable, you slowly lose your position in the relationship. You start overthinking everything. You start doubting your reactions. You start trying harder just to keep things stable. But real stability doesn't feel like effort all the time. It feels like ease. Like you don't have to constantly prove your place. And when that ease disappears, it's worth paying attention to. People who maintain healthy long-term relationships usually do one thing differently. They don't focus only on isolated behavior. They look at consistency over time. They notice whether the emotional effort is mutual or one-sided. And they also know something important. They know how they feel when they are treated well. Not occasionally, but consistently. Because when you know that feeling clearly, you can recognize when it disappears. Most relationship problems don't come from extreme situations. They come from ignored small signals. Small moments that didn't feel important enough to address. But over time, those small moments become the structure of the relationship itself. And once a structure forms, it's hard to pretend it's something else. Now here's a shift in perspective that changes everything. The point is not to quickly cut people off. And it is not to label people as good or bad. The point is to notice. What kind of version of yourself exists in each relationship? Do you feel steady, or do you feel like you are constantly adjusting? Do you speak freely, or do you calculate your words? Do you feel seen, or do you feel managed? Because in the end, relationships are not just about other people. They are about who you become in their presence. And that version of you is always giving you information. If you feel smaller over time, that is information. If you feel unheard more often, that is information. If you feel like you have to earn basic respect, that is information. Not everything requires a dramatic decision. But everything requires awareness. Because awareness changes how you participate. And how you participate changes the entire dynamic. And maybe that's the real turning point. Not changing others. Not forcing outcomes. But finally noticing the pattern you've been inside all along. Because once you see it clearly, you can't fully unsee it. And from that moment on, every relationship becomes a little more honest. Not perfect, but honest enough for you to know where you stand. And maybe that's the beginning of something healthier. Not distance, not detachment, but clarity. Because clarity doesn't push people away. It simply stops you from losing yourself while staying close.